And hello! How is everybody doing? There's always that weird fear, that tension at the start of a live stream, and you kind of like, hello, is anybody listening? Anybody out there? Mathew, are you there?
I'm here.
I hope you're there, otherwise this entire thing is getting scuttled. Oh my god, Ryo! So to introduce us, do you want to tell us what you've been up to the past month? Anything inspiring you, hobby-wise? Any miniatures you like the look of? Oh.
I have been painting the Praetorian of Terror himself, Rogel Dawn, as he's going to be the second part to the Praetorian of Terror duel that I'm doing with Alfarius, which there's going to be video tutorials for both of them. I've also been doing a face painting PDF guide to go up, following up on our last month's seminar, where it was painting the Rogel Dawn face to give people an idea of how to paint faces, or a guide to how I do them. I've also been coming up with a new pledge that we're going to be running, which we'll talk more about at the end, and it's going to be ace.
Yeah, you want to stay tuned for that, so we're teasing it here. But yeah, it was announced yesterday in the Patreon, but if you don't follow along with that, why the hell don't you? But yeah, we'll be in, it's going to kick my behind into gear at the very least. Okay, so Mathew, what the hell are we doing today? What exactly is focal points? So, do you want to give us a brief overview of what we're doing today?
Okay, so something that I always teach when I go through a teaching process with any of my students is a structured foundation towards painting. And understanding how to create a focal point is an absolute fundamental to everything that I do in painting, because everything has to lead to something. Yeah, I try to draw the viewer's eyes to what I want them to see, as opposed to seeing other pieces of the model that are not very relevant. So everything is focusing your eyes in. So the main content of this webinar is going to be on this lesson that I've prepared, but we're also going to branch off at the end and lead that into how you can find a focal model within an army, and then you can find focal armies within armies. But the overriding factor is how to create a focal point on one model.
Freaking awesome. Sorry, I was watching you live on stream as you were talking, and a bit of a weird disconnect. If you are watching live, please let us know that you're out there. Please say hello in the chat box in the YouTube side chat. Ask any questions. Hell, tell us how you draw attention to your own miniatures, how you draw attention both within the miniature itself and in a wider force. Okay, should we just dive straight into this? Because you've sent me this lesson. I've read through it a couple of times, and I'm still fascinated by this process. So teach me how to be a better painter, Mathew.
Okay, cool. Before we start, Myles, if you just click the play button on the presentation, it will make that go full screen, and people won't be able to see the slides down the side of it. They'll just see the main screen itself.
Unfortunately, you can't do that. It's just what we have here.
Okay, cancel that then. So this lesson then is called Focal Points, and it's brought to you by Lil'Legend, taught by me. It's one that I have taught to a fair number of students, and I've also taught it to a number of non-artists as well. It was done as a interest lesson for a job that I was trying for, to become an instructor. Well, I had to teach on something. So I figured this would be a really good one because it's something that I'm very keen on and something that I feel that I know quite a lot about. So if you click to the next slide, Myles.
Sure thing. And while it's waiting to load up, hello everybody. We have Boucher 246, little emoji, thank you very much. Have Laura, hey, how are you doing? Flaming Tiki Airbrush Studio, hello. Johan, how are we doing, everybody? Keith, hey Keith, how are we doing? Again, if you're watching live, please let us know. Please interrupt. Please give yourselves a shout out because we'll read out your message live on the show. Okay, so we're up on to the next.
Okay, So just to let everybody know, because I can't control this lesson, Myles has got to do it, and because of the time lapse in between it coming up on my screen, we have to fill that little bit of time in with a bit of chit chat. So the objective of this lesson, and it comes under that old saying of art is in the eye of the beholder. Or is it? Is it in the eye of the beholder? Are they seeing the picture that they want to see, or are they seeing the picture that we want them to see? So the objective of this lesson is to teach you various ways that an artist can create a focal point. Now, there's a number of them, and I'm going to break it all down into a series of different categories of which can help you to understand the process a lot more fluidly, a lot easier than what you might think that it could be. Because once you understand these, it will change the process in which you paint. Next slide, please, Myles.
Beautiful. Okay, it's just coming up now. Hello, Death and Betrayal podcast, viewer from Canada. We have Sean. Hey, how are you doing, from the old Charlotte class that I taught? Alistair, how are we doing?
I'm going to be seeing Alistair a bit later. I'm going for a game.
Oh, lovely. What do you play? Sorry, this is completely off track, but I can't help myself here. I mean, meeting people is such a novel idea now at the moment, isn't it? What are you playing?
I'm going to play Titanicus, the first game that I've played in a long, long time. I can't wait.
Oh, God. Well,
best game system out there at the moment. Just saying. Anyway, on with the class. Focal points in art to create definition. So you can see two various images there. Now, throughout this lesson, Myles, you're going to be playing the part of my student, but what I would like is everybody else who is on the live chat to chip in with answers. It would be great to see your answers come up and see what everybody else has got to say to what I'm posing as questions. So, if you look at the two images there, Myles, and everybody else, what would you say your eyes are most naturally drawn to on both of those two images?
the face. The eyes.
The face? Yeah. And why is that?
Right, on the one... the one with the blue background, the one that's not Mona Lisa, I probably should say, is... so the light is in the background, and there's kind of like, oh God, what's it called? Like a blacked out effect around her. So that's dragging your attention to the head immediately. Her face, like the light on her face is slightly brighter than the shadow on this side, and her face is more illuminated than the rest of her body. So in terms of value, so that scale from black to white, everything is leading towards her face. On the Mona Lisa, it helps that the face is central, so your eye is automatically drawn to that central aspect. The background has less definition to it, it's a bit blurrier. The eyes are very much in focus and is framed by those dark frames of the hair. So that's why I say that those are my immediate thoughts of dragging attention to those areas.
Good. Okay, so
get a star. Yes.
So I'll talk you through what I took off of what you said and what I see from these two images. Now you've got that halo effect behind the photograph. And then you've also got a lighter area behind Mona Lisa. Now, both of those draw the viewer's eye towards that location, so around what is the focal point of the piece. Also, subconsciously, and you wouldn't even realize it, but actually the clothing is naturally drawing you up towards the focal point, because in the photograph you've got a black jacket, which is creating a bracket down a lighter part of the picture. The same with the Mona Lisa. Her robes come up and over her shoulders and exposing her chest. Now both of these lead onto the hairline, and the hairline go up either side of the face, which creates another bracket. Now because the hair is also darker than the face, that's also going to draw your attention in. Now if you look at the two bits of scripture that I've put onto the screen, so focal points when used in art are defined as the area in the composition to which the viewer's eye is naturally drawn. And it is essential to classic art, although abstract artists may deliberately create compositions without focal points. Now, both of those two bits of scripture on the screen are very key for creating a focal point as an artist. However, I've utilized them either side of the picture to artificially make a bracket around those two images. So bracketing is a very key feature that we want to be aware of when it comes towards creating a focal point. We can use brackets to draw the viewer's eye to where we want to see it. That is the first way in which we can draw somebody's eye towards a focal point. And throughout this lesson, we're going to cover an awful lot more of them. So, any questions on that, Myles, or anybody else?
No, not at the moment. I'll bring you on to the next slide, see if anybody... I'm getting made fun of. People are saying I'm the teacher's pet. I mean, I was always front of the... I was always front of the class. I'd shine that apple. Yeah, I was a good student. I'm a good boy. I'm not... I wasn't the class clown. I wasn't that kid in the back. I was the kid at the back doing little doodles in the corner of his book.
Is that how you got your degree?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's not far off the truth, actually.
Okay, so the class exercise. Knowing how to create strong focal points is a skill every artist should be able to execute. They are the areas in which art demands attention. The areas in art which demand attention, giving the artist the ability to manipulate the viewer into seeing exactly what they want them to see. So, using a PED, that stands for personal electronic device, like a phone or a tablet, what I would like you to do is utilize it, Google, any search engine, to come up with a list of what creates a focal point. When you've got that list, it might be an idea to write them down as notes, because it could come in handy after the class for whenever you come to doing it yourself in the future.
Sorry, just doing that now. So the task is just to whip through Google for focal points, or find art that we like and say what creates a focal point on it. Just
type into Google.
Yep.
Creating a artistic
okay.
Something like that, and it will come up with a list of different ways.
Artistic focal point. Whoa! I do not want to see those images. Poof.
It's a good job that's not on the screen, eh? So all of the models throughout this whole webinar are models that either I or Myles have painted, and it'd be really cool if going through it, if anybody can find how we Myles and I created those focal points, what we did to force people to view in certain points on those models. It'd be really cool to see what people can come up with in the chat. So did you get a list of answers, Myles?
Yeah, got a bunch of them. Got absolute bunch of them. Should we read them out?
Yeah, go for it.
I typed in creating an artistic focal point, and very luckily, it comes at the top of the search engine. So, contrast. One way to create a focal point in art is through the use of contrast. Oh, Alistair got there before me. You're the apple shining now, mate. Isolation is the next one. Another way to create a focal point in artwork is through isolation, ... Then we have placement, convergence, and 5. This is really unhelpful. The usual. Oh no, so the unusual. Sugar, I completely bottled that. I completely botched that. Yeah, the unusual as a focal point. Okay, so any of those terms ring any bells, Mathew?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, it's going to coincide with the rest of the lesson, because I might have used that search engine to help me compose this lesson. So
write this down, people, if you haven't got access to Google. Contrast, isolation, placement, convergence, and the unusual. Not the usual. Okay.
And if you flick to the next screen, Myles, while you're doing that, I've just seen somebody come up and make a comment, a friend of mine, who was an instructor of me. He taught me how to teach certain lesson genres. He is an absolute whiz kid when it comes to teaching. It is actually his trade. And we actually became friends because we have a massive, massive penchant towards films and geekiness. And we had a nerd off in class. And it was around about the time that the film Top Gun 2 had its trailer playing. And it just so happens to be both of our favourite films. And I wore this T-shirt especially for him, hoping that he would tune in to watch this. So, hey,
Oh,
buddy.
there you go. Okay, Paul, can you do us a favour? At the end of this, can you give Mathew a grade on how this webinar's gone?
No.
Yeah, Paul, that's that.
Oh dear. Right. Anyway, on with the class. Enough of that. Don't embarrass me on screen. So the first point you came up with that came up in that Google search was contrast. Now, contrast refers to difference. Any type of difference will result in that element becoming the focal point. This can be color, value, texture, shape, or form. By combining these, you can increase the contrast created, strengthening the focal point. Now, Myles, on that image there, where are you naturally drawn to look at?
Her eyes.
Her eyes, right? Okay, and why is?
Hear that banging? It's a nice weekend here, so of course people are doing work. So if you hear the occasional bang and crash and blue word, it's not my dog. It's the builders next door. Sorry. How is attention drawn towards the eyes? Well, so I think this is very kind of like cyberpunky, this color scheme. So we have that bright red for the hair, for like this off-camera ambient color. And then the rest of her face is in cool tones. So it's kind of like an indigo that moves to a green. And you can see the brightest portion of her face is the top of her forehead and the eyebrow here. Not the eyebrow, sorry, the cheek. So everything is being drawn, and even the curve of her shoulder, it looks a bit Fibonacci-esque, how you have that curl from her shoulder through to the hair, curving round to her eye.
Yeah, so your eye is naturally being drawn up those shapes towards the eye.
I feel like I'm being manipulated.
Now, looking at that title of contrast, and looking at the different things that contrast can refer to, colour. How have they used colour to create contrast to help you look at where the artist wants you to look at, i.e. the eyes?
Should we throw this out to people in chat? Let's give it a couple of minutes.
Absolutely.
Okay, answer. We're going to sit here in silence, absolute goddamn silence, until somebody provides us an answer.
That's radio broadcasting.
Yeah. So if you want things to move along, you guys in the comment section better put something in there. You better put something fast, because do you want to do like a staring contest while we wait? I was always terrible though. I got dry eyes. It's not a medical thing, but I think if I pushed it further, like if I went to a GP, they would say that I got dry eyes.
Okay. Yeah. Is that tumbleweed going across?
Yeah. Nobody's answering. Fine. I'll chip in here. It's okay. I always feel a little bit cheap whenever I suggest this to students as well, or whenever I use it myself. But complementary color tones. So, what the best color complement I could possibly think of? Green and red, because it's so heavily used in advertisement for Christmas. It is the color code. So, gold, green, and red. So this is a very, very, very obvious example of how the artist is trying to drag attention by using a complementary color scheme, red and green.
Yeah, absolutely. So the artist has also done something else in this image with the use of color, or lack of color, because the artist has put a very dark patch in around the ear, which breaks up those two lighter colors, which naturally draws your eye towards the lighter colors, or the colours around it, and because they're contrasting, you're naturally going to be drawn towards the lighter one of those. Now, there's another thing in contrast that is also going to help you tell the difference between those two areas. Can you tell what different textures are involved in that piece?
Ooh, smooth and hairy.
There you go. So you've got the coarseness of the hair and the smooth skin tone. So that is another contrast and value. Then you've got the shape that's being formed, as we already said, and with the S shape. But if you look at the curvature of the hair, and then follow it across the cheekbone, into the eye socket, up onto the eyebrow, that is creating almost a rectangular shape with curves at either end around that focal area. So then, can you tell any contrast within the form of this piece?
Ooh.
Or maybe the value?
So in terms of value, I guess the brighter value is concentrated on the back of her head, on the front. So it kind of frames it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the form?
Form, I guess you have the coarseness of the hair, the smoothness of the skin.
So there's loads and loads of different factors going on. You've got all of those different things in form, value, texture, shape, colour, loads and loads of different contrasting factors which help to draw you towards the focal point. Also adds loads of interest to the image as well, which is making it a very, very good artistic piece. But it's helping the viewer see what the artist wants them to look at, which is the focal point of this image. And on that point, you can move on to the next slide.
Beautiful. Yeah, I guess it's an eye-popping image as well because it's unusual tones. Because when you look at like a human skin tone, you don't expect to see greens and indigos and the bright flashing red. So yeah, very eye-catching image.
Definitely. So that's exactly what is going to be happening all the way through this, and it might just so happen that you might see a pattern in what we're creating as the focal points. So, isolation and placement. Where are you naturally drawn to look at on that image, Myles?
Those whopping great oblongs. But her eyes. Yeah,
well, if this was running in PowerPoint like it should be, rather than how it is running, those oblongs, those shapes wouldn't be on this image. They would come up as I press the button for them to come up. Such is the greatness of, or lack of, technical skills that we hold. However, isolation and placement. Whenever an object or element appears separated, it becomes isolated, making it the focal point. So, you said that you're naturally drawn to look at those eyes. There's a number of reasons why you were drawn to look at those eyes, and the first one, in fact, lots of them, come from the previous slide. Can you tell me what from the previous slide would lead you to look at the focal point on this image?
Right. So we got terms of in terms of contrast, we got value, we've got coloration, and I guess form and texture. So let's go through those. We have the value. So the skin in the middle is brighter. So your eyes are naturally drawn to that. You have the contrast between the skin and the hair. So the coarseness of the hair, smoothness of the skin. You have primarily a warm palette around her hair and skin and her lips, and then that's contrasted with the grey of her eyes and the grey of the background. So you're instantly drawn towards her eye. Have I missed anything there? Contrast, value.
No. The other thing that we picked up on right at the start of the class was bracketing. Now there's two brackets, hence they are circled. You've got that strand of hair going across underneath her eyes, which is creating a bracket towards the eyebrows. The eyebrows and that strand of hair becomes a bracket, and then the hair coming down either side also create a bracket. So you've got two brackets boxing in and isolating those eyes. So you've also got the boldness of the bright blue eyes contrasting with the red of the hair. And that's not used through light this time. That is actually the colour of the piece. So that's the second or third, if you include the bracketing, way that an artist can create a focal point. And I'm sure by now you're starting to see a pattern to what is becoming the focal point. But we'll go on to that. So at that point, next slide, please, Myles.
Perfect. Okay, let's have a look at the comments. Baz, well, afternoon, gents. Blah. Afternoon, Baz. Martin, the eyes for sure. Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, the even though they weren't like bright, piercing blue eyes, the all those tricks that Mathew's been taking us drag you to them. Alistair, sorry, had my son blowing raspberries on my arm. Well, you can't. You can't apologise for that. Life happens. The hair frames are eyes, skin tone, and hair colour. Exactly.
Good. Sounds like people are actually learning from this and already picking up upon it. This is good. Okay, so moving on to the next point. Convergence. The use of implied lines and spot highlights to direct the viewer's eye towards the focal point. Now, if you think back to a couple of previous webinars that we did, where I said about putting battle damage on that drew you towards the focal area, so it all pointed up towards the focal area. Now, that can also be implied in everything that you paint on the miniature. So, if you take a look at Horus there, what would you say is in place on that model, just from the designer side of it, not even the paint side of things, to draw you towards a focal point on that piece?
Right. So, first thing that I see, weirdly enough, because I read, most people read left to right, so my eye's instantly drawn to the bottom of that base. Then you have the curvature as it goes up, drags you towards Horus. Then your eye leads you up along that right leg, leads you up through the centre to that chest, that eye on the chest. And it's, even though the paint job drags your attention to the head, the sculpt, weirdly enough, leads my eye towards that central eye in the centre of his chest. Because it's big, it's puffed out, it's in that central portion of the sculpt. And it drags my attention towards it. The cloak as well, the sweep of the cloak, going alongside the World Breaker hammer or mace or whatever it is, in line with one another. And then you have the truges, those leather straps kind of flapping in the wind, and they sync up rather nicely to that wolf pelt at the top. So you have slightly more natural looking details there that frame the face more. So from like a sculpture point of view, that's where I can see. Actually, did Simon mention anything like this when he was sculpting it? Did he talk about this at all?
He didn't. However, I could quite easily pick up upon it, because actually the things start even off with the miniature. If you look at that banister, which I've just seen somebody come up in the messages and say, the banister is the first thing that's drawing you up towards that focal point, because it's going from the bottom, drawing you up towards the miniature, which then draws you further up towards the focal point. That, if you look at this image from this angle, is running pretty much in a straight line. Banister coming up here to mace going up there. It's almost in a straight line bisecting the model, if you drew a line through the two. So that's already creating something that is drawing you in towards the model. Now, if you go down, and this is where we're going to start talking about the various different contrasting pieces and different elements that is drawing you up towards that focal points in lines of conversion. So if you look at the feet of the miniature, there is a very, very bright spot at the top of the toes. That, without you even thinking about it, is going to draw your eyes to it. Now, directly above that, you've got the brass trim, which has a lightest point on it, which corresponds with the lightest point of the toe. That draws you up to the knee pad, where there is a lightest point on it, in line with the line going down towards the toe. Then, if you look up at that left thigh, it's actually got a line painted up it, drawing you up towards those druges. The druges on his waist also then make a triangular shape with the druges on his shoulder pads, therefore drawing your eye into the center of the miniature. That is drawing you in towards a massive great big eye on his belt buckle. And if you look at the highlights either side of it, you've got a line going right at the middle, which is a highlight contrasting with the shadow on the other side of it. Now, this is my paint job as opposed to the design of the miniature, although it is naturally on an angle anyway, so you could say that the designer is bringing you up the miniature as well. That is bringing you up towards the chest, where you've got another Eye of Horus. Now, that is flanked either side by very bright colours. And then the eye actually becomes a part of the halo. And if you think back to previous seminars where you have a head which helps to draw the viewers. Now that Eye of Horus on the chest, you've got 2 Eyes of Horus on the shoulder pads, and then you've got a red lens on the mechanical doodah sensor thing above his head. Those 4 points create a focal point around the head. They naturally frame that part of the image. Then you've got very, very warm golden yellow on the shoulder pads, which creates a contrast to the red of the underglow of his head, therefore creating another contrast, helping to enhance the viewer to see where you want it to look. Then you've got different textures because you've got a wolf pelt, which is, like you said, a very natural material as opposed to unnatural, rigid, hard armor. Where else can you see a natural flow on that miniature?
Guys, help me out here. Natural flow of the miniature. Wolf pelt, definitely. You can see it overlapping the armor, kind of leading towards his head. But
it's the teruges. It's another piece of cloth which is creating a movement that the armor does not allow, because the armor is rigid, whereas the cloth can move with the wind. So all of those elements are creating contrast, drawing you towards that focal point. Now, if you look at that mace, from the very tip of it, follow it down towards his hand, and then you've got a line literally painted up his arm, which is where the light is hitting to draw you towards the focal point. All of these things are implied lines that I, the painter, and the designer also put in place to draw you towards the focal point. There are many, many different things that have been used to create what the artist is trying to make the viewer see. Ultimately, it's all drawing you towards that focal point, which is the head. Now, if you go onto the next image, Myles, you'll see these lines of influence that have been literally drawn onto the miniature so that everybody can see what I'm doing.
Yeah, perfect. Just as it loads up, Sean had some really nice points on the composition of the piece. Parallel lines on eagle and arms. The head is perpendicular and everything is facing right, but his head, which is turned against the wind almost.
Which is another form of contrast, isn't it?
Yeah, really nice spots there, Sean.
Definitely. So there you can see on the image there, those lines, I've actually drawn them on to show those lines of influence and how they're converging onto that focal point to make it the thing that you are naturally looking at, without even realizing that that's the thing that you're looking at. So you can move on to the next slide. Do you have any questions on that, Myles?
I guess not questions, more I guess we do this naturally with how we go about pre-shading. So when we pre-shade a miniature, it does tend to...
You've got to the start, Myles.
Oh, yeah, I need to load them up again. Yeah, so when you pre-shade things, you do tend to go in that area anyway. How everything is being drawn towards the head, how you want it slightly brighter in those areas. How else would you use this sort of framework, especially when it comes to the early stages of your miniature painting? Any tips or tricks you can offer there?
Well, it's funny you should bring up the pre-shade and pre-highlight, because when going back to when I teach people to paint miniatures, it always starts at the pre-shade and pre-highlight, because that's creating a sketch, and it is all worked from a common light source. You have one main light source which comes from one particular part of the miniature. Now, what I very, very often have it coming from the top left-hand side of the miniature, and therefore it works out where is going to be lit up and where is going to be shaded, which is what I create in the pre-shade and pre-highlight, creating my natural lightest points and my natural darkest points, so that when I apply colour over the top of it, you're naturally going to get lighter and darker areas from the tone of paint you put on. It's all a common factor that comes together when you paint with me, when you do the lessons that I run. It always runs through this process to help to draw people to what I want them to look at, and therefore, because you're taking lessons with me, what you want them to look at as well.
Oh, perfect. So should we? That's actually a really nice segue into the lessons. So we do have limited availability available with Mathew at the moment. How many students do you have at the moment? 13, I think it is.
Yeah, 12 or 13, yeah.
12, 13. So, I mean, there's a very limited availability left with us at the moment. We do have 2 or 3 spaces, I believe, currently, right now, ready and raring to go. So if you do want this kind of individualized feedback, specifically on your own miniatures, if you're struggling with any miniature painting concepts, if you want to learn how to do focal points, how to drag attention to areas on the miniature, and I guess more to build on top of it, colour recipes, how to paint specific legions, how to paint specific custodies, golds, true metallics, non-metallics. What are you going through at the moment with some of your students?
I've got various students at different stages, because I've got some guys that are taking 2 lessons per month, and some guys that are just taking 1 lesson per month. So therefore, the guys taking 2 lessons are a little bit more advanced than the guys that are just on the 1 lesson. So this focal points lesson, I actually take through all of my students. I take them through it so that it can give them a strong understanding. And because it's a one-on-one situation, everybody has a lot more input and talk, and we can discuss through the various points in it and really help them to understand. I've had some students come back and say, my God, that was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But it is just the fundamental grounding points to when it comes to painting the miniatures. Some of the guys have gone past that stage and got onto the pre-shading, and then some of the guys have been set homework to apply colour over that pre-shade to help to get colour application onto the miniature, utilising the pre-shade and pre-highlight, and we're then going on to drawing people up the miniature towards the focal point, of which we can then put on extra colours and extra points of interest. Loads more to come from it, because we're maximum four lessons into the process. So yeah. Loads more to come.
Yeah, and if one-to-one lessons aren't your thing, if you're a bit of a hermit, if you shy away from human interaction, and let's face it, we've all practiced that over the past year or so, there's a full-blown library already up on Lil'Legend Studio Patreon, covering pretty much everything that you can think of at this point. We're doubling up. At the moment, we are running Magnus v. Russ. We have just put up the first tutorial in the non-true metallic style that's been developed at the moment. And pleased to say, Mathew's videos are nearly so close to coming out, and the footage is chef's kiss. But yeah, how about we go on to the unusual? So we got a rather handsome picture of Mike Tyson up on the screen.
Okay, so Mike Tyson, out of interest, and this comes because of Paul's comments when I took him through this lesson when I was rehearsing with him. What would you say was Mike Tyson's most poignant feature? What would you say Mike Tyson wanted everybody to look at?
Those bloody huge fists pummeling you in the face.
Well, as I was told to tell everybody, actually, Mike Tyson likes everybody to look at his eyes, because he thinks it's the most intimidating factor. It's actually a load of bullshit. It's not. But it was. I was told to say it just to grab everybody's attention a bit more. But looking at this picture here, what would you say was unusual about those 2 images?
Unusual, but well, certainly his face tattoo springs immediately to mind. That's a very unusual detail. I guess the one on the left would be kind of like his hairstyle, that cut leading towards his face, towards his eye, I guess.
Exactly. So both of those 2 elements are drawing you towards his face, towards his eyes. Hence why I was told to put that comment in about the eyes. Now, if you introduce an element that is unusual, it will demand attention, thus becoming the focal point. because it's unnatural to have those things. You don't naturally have lines in your hair. You don't naturally have tattoos on your face. So, with both of those two things put onto Mike Tyson in these two images, you are naturally drawn to his eyes. You put that onto anything, any human being, any object, anything, if it is unusual and out of place to what we commonly know when we look at something, it will naturally make us look at it. Think Mr. Blobby, pink with yellow spots. What do you naturally look at, the pink or the yellow?
The yellow.
Yeah, exactly, because it's more unusual than a massive, great big pink round thing shouting blobby, blobby, blobby at you. You're naturally drawn to looking at something that looks unusual. And at that point, it's a great time to move on to the next slide, Mark.
Okie dokie. Yeah, I've got some interesting comments in here. So excited for the videos, Alistair. Yeah, we've announced this already, haven't we? It's the Alfarius that you're doing.
Yeah. So Alfarius is done. All the videos are done for him.
With that, you've gone for like a prismatic effect, which, I mean, watching the footage, I don't think I've seen anything else quite like it. The color. How do you describe it? Like a mirage of colors that you wanted to achieve with it?
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So the Alpha Legion are never. The whole idea of the Alpha Legion is that they never actually are what you think they are. Mystique and intrigue. So if from one particular angle you think you're seeing one thing, actually if they turn around, you could be seeing something completely different. So I wanted to create that look within the Alfarius miniature. So you've got purple through to blue, through to green, through to yellow, which is almost creating a mirage across the scales on his armor. All of that creates contrast towards other elements of the miniature, but ultimately everything on that miniature creates contrast towards his opposing factor in this duel, which is Dawn, which is really warm, bold, bright colors, strong, stoic, which is what Dawn is all about. Everything about this image is to create contrast between the two of them. And you'll see that when the final piece is done, but I've done 7 different videos for Alfarius showing how to do different elements of him. And then I will do a multitude of different videos for Dawn as well. So the true metal metallic gold that he's very well known of. His face, I've done that in a PDF guide, but I've also done video guides as well. So there'll be loads of different guides for people to look at and follow along with.
Yes, a heavy couple of months for our students because at the moment we're rolling out Magnus versus Russ, and then we'll have Alfarius versus Dawn. It's going to be hard to top that, but yeah, all coming very, very soon. So we have tattoos and a haircut. Yep, Mike Tyson, his most ferocious weapon was his eyes, Paul said. And Alistair, I look for a baseball bat. Because of the delay, that's a bit apropos of nothing, but I'm sure if we thought back, I think you should always look for a baseball bat if somebody's approaching you. Yeah, why not? It's a good rule for life. Okay, let's go on to Sanguinii.
Okay, so the use of colour. Now this is a group interaction, and Myles, from this, I can't actually read it, so you're going to have to read it for me.
Okie dokie, my pleasure. Right. So what do we have here? We have use of colour. So colour can be used to manipulate an entire image. Group discussion. Do you want to take... Do you want me to I'll read the entire thing out with your blessing. Yeah. Okay. Group discussion. So we want you to discuss this in the comments. How has colour been used to set the scene? And how does it help to draw viewers' eye towards the focal point?
And we'll just go through each of these points individually. So the use of colour between those two images in terms of temperature and how it draws you towards the focal point. So if you was to look at the Sanguinius on the left-hand side, so the version that I painted with the orange at the bottom and the blue at the top, what would you say the temperature was of that piece?
As the picture that I see it, the
Okay.
Oh, sorry, my microphone
And
was off then. Sorry, let me go through that again. Sorry, as I
no,
look at that
no,
photo, the temperature's
I
cool.
heard you. So you think it's a cool image, like coming from something cold.
Yes.
And then if you look at the other image, what would you say the temperature was of that piece?
Ooh, it's quite hard to gauge because you have the pale blush red at top and then the green below. So you have cool at the bottom, warm up top. So I'm not sure. Like split the difference,
So
50-50?
if you look at both of those two images, you've got cold at one side of them and warm at the other. So the artists have created a bracket of contrasting color. Would you say you can see that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you've got orange and blue. That's contrasting colors within the color wheel. And then you've got red and green. Again, contrasting color. They are creating a temperature towards the piece. One would bring you to a warm looking piece. One would bring you to a cold looking piece, even though ultimately they are the same model, just posed slightly differently. So let's take that on to the next point.
Perfect.
What's the next point, Myles?
Okay, we got the color wheel coming up. This intimidating.
No.
Oh,
We're not there.
right up.
Mood.
Mood. Okay. What do we think the mood is, guys? So the mood on the left, very triumphant, very angelic. The one on the right, almost Nurglish, with the filters over it. It's bleached out of color, desaturated. Yeah, so the mood for that, it's hard to gauge a mood with that.
If you was to look at the Sanguinius that I painted, what would you say his mood was?
Glorious and triumphant.
Okay, then. So then look at the mood of your piece, and what would you say the mood of your Sanguinius was?
Pox-ridden with the green underglow to it. Kind of like that green
Personally,
fire.
I would say pissed off. I'd say he was very angry.
Right.
He was coming down to smite the foes.
Uh-huh.
But again, this is the joy of art, isn't it? The art can tell lots of different stories, lots of different things that different people will see. Okay, so then go on to the actual story then. What would you say was the story of the two pieces?
Gorgon Bar's a big giveaway. So this is Sanguinius defending Gorgon Bar at Terra. The one on the right, it probably looks like Cygnus Prime. And Sanguinius descending on some poor demon and obliterating him.
Okay, so when he was at Cygnus Prime and he was coming down to fight the demons, he was doing his own thing, wasn't he? He was angry. He was trying to take revenge upon the things that have caused him harm. In the other image, at Gorgon Bar, where you had petrified humans or Terrans that are running for their lives because of the absolute unstoppable tide of enemy that's flowing at them, that are the traitors. In this image, I have caught Sanguinius in his look to me and I will inspire you. I have descended from the heavens and I am a demigod and I'm here to save you. So that is telling two different stories from those two different models or pictures of Sanguinius. So that leads us quite nicely onto the emotion of the two pieces. We've worked out that there's a different temperature. We've worked out that there's a different mood and a story. And now we're coming to the emotion of the two pictures. What would you say the emotion of the two pictures was?
So I'd probably gauge the one on the left to be uplifting, quite joyous, whereas the one on the right, a little bit dour, depressing, nihilistic.
Right. Okay. So we have got two of pretty much the same piece that are telling two completely different stories, but everything leads towards a focal point of that miniature. You are drawn towards that focal point to tell all of those different things that we've just been through. The temperature, the mood, the story, the emotion, which is exactly the same as what we see every time we look at any piece of art. And at that point, we can move on to the next image.
Nice segue. Okay, on to the colour wheel, this big, intimidating SOB there he is.
What was the different comments that came through there? I saw a few of them.
So we got warm on the right, descending from cold to warmth. We got right, looks like the climax in the story. The right one's a bit more depressing. So left, joyous, right, rage. The left image gives you the feeling of the bringer of light, angelic, powerful, full of emotion. And then Alistair says, left, saviour, right, killer.
There you go, see? Two completely contrasting things, and a lot of it was born together from all of the different points that we've already covered, but everything draws you towards his face to tell ultimately what the artist was trying to make you feel about the piece. Even though I'm sure both you and I can agree that the most painstaking part of that model was definitely his wings.
Yeah, wings. Yeah, by far.
Okay, so the colour wheel. Now, colour, contrast, and complementary colours. If we think back to those two previous images, and Myles, I'm not going to get you to go back because there's a time delay on it, but one of them had a red light from one angle, and the opposing side of that was green. One of them had a blue light coming from the top and an orange light coming from the bottom. And if we look at the colour wheel, both of those are contrasting sides of that colour wheel, both directly opposite. Those images would have looked completely different had those two, that element not been put in. You wouldn't have had half of the story that was trying to be told from both of those two images without the use of the colour. Now, this can be used every single place that we paint any miniature from now until forever, because we could just use darker and lighter tones of something, which looks good in its own effect. However, if you want to create more of an impact, which ultimately can help draw you towards what we want people to be looking at, we can use contrasting or complementary colours from the colour wheel. It's really, really useful to have a colour wheel to hand every time you paint. And now you can move on to the next slide.
Okay,
have you got any points on that, Myles?
Yeah, so colour wheels, they're a bit of a weird thing. They're all different kinds of colour wheels out there. I think one of the best you can get out there is called the Martian colour wheel. So, during lessons especially, when you point to, okay, what you should paint this red. Well, exactly what red? Because students don't exactly have the same colour palette as you do, there's a multitude of different reds that you can choose from, ranging from red orange right the way through to like red violet. So having that Martian colour wheel, it's slightly more descriptive in terms of value and saturations. You can say dark plum instead, or what was another one? Elderberry. Yeah, they have some beautiful names for it. So it's well worth picking up an actual physical colour wheel that you can buy, because it has all these like complementary and split triads and how to develop colour schemes on the miniature. It tells you what happens when you mix certain colours together, so black and red, and you can physically see the kind of colour combinations you can make. But yeah, have a look at the Martian colour wheel. Brilliant resource. Hopefully it'll change your life for the better.
Okay, you can flick to the next one again, Myles, because this is just to ask questions from any students.
Beautiful. But yeah, if you got any question, it doesn't have to be about this topic in particular. It could be about anything, about what we've painted previously, what we paint in the future. Paul, ask anything you like. Or what you're painting at the moment. If you just want tips on anything that you have going on at the moment, we are here at your beck and call for at least another half an hour. So get them in, guys.
Okay, so going into the summary and the final practice. Now, final practice we won't do because everybody doesn't have the various things that I need that I put to students in class to do the final practice. It's just a handout of a outline of a soldier that I give to students and with a load of colouring crayons and ask them to create a focal point on it. But in summary, in today's lesson, we have covered how to create focal points in art using which methods. Now, again, in class, this would have been me just clicking each button as to each one of these things came up. However, we weren't able to do that on this seminar. So the methods that we're using: contrast, isolation, placement, convergence, or lines of convergence, the unusual, colour and bracketing. Loads of different ways that we can create a focal point within a miniature or a piece of art. And again, you can move on.
Just clicking that. Thank you very much, Alex. See you again soon. Alistair, I'm likely to eat the crayons. Yeah, we all know that, pal. We all know that. Okay, coming up to the conclusion.
Yeah. So this lesson has taught you the ways in which an artist can utilize different methods or techniques in which to create focal point or points to their piece. And there is an image of Alfarius. I'm sure people have seen it already, but that is Alfarius, and there is a complete video guide to how I create that image coming out very soon. I hope that everybody has taken loads away from this lesson, and you've got all of those different ways, those methods that we can utilize to create focal point on a miniature, and hopefully it will help you with your art in the future. Now, that's the lesson side of things, and we can move on from that. So Myles, you can take the lesson down from the main screen now, and just fill it with images if you want.
I will leave Alfarius up because that's it's a beautiful rendition of Alfarius, and this is the miniature that you'll be seeing the tutorials coming on as well. So I mean, just looking at that thing, I'm sure you'll be exploring this in a lot more detail in the video tutorials themselves. But it's all the things we've been talking about in this lesson, how it's all dragging attention. But so no spoilers. But if you've listened to this lesson, which you should have been, you'll know how Mathew's dragged attention towards the face, the colour combinations that he's used to make that armour scintillate on there. And if you'd like to see it, I think it's coming at the end of next month, just to make sure we schedule it in alongside or correctly. So yeah, that is that. Next month, at the start of next month, we're going to do something rather special. First of the month, what are we aiming to do? So,
I came to Myles with an idea just recently, something that got me very excited. And if you think back to our original webinar where I said that I'm somebody that feeds off of somebody else's excitement. Now, I got very excited because there was lots of other people very excited about it, and it just seems to be that Games Workshop are feeding the enthusiasm at the moment with the releases. And I love Adeptus Titanicus. So I am going to be running a pledge scheme for Adeptus Titanicus. It's something I used to do with students in the past, and I would set a target, and people would have to do something to achieve that target by the end of the month. I would say something like a support Titan, or a pair of Warhounds, or a banner of Knights, for example. And within that monthly period, the aim is to get those miniatures painted so that come the next month, you can move on to the next monthly pledge. And ultimately, this is all in aid to a final mission, a final target, that because it's only a 6-month pledge, that at the end of it, you have a gaming force ready to take part in a gaming event, which we will be hosting. And the idea is that if you sign up to this pledge, it's the only available pledge that on the Patreon that doesn't have anything going for it. It's the $32 sign-up pledge. Everybody will then, for that $32, get 4 lessons a month from me. Now, it's not individual lessons. It is a group lessons for up to 50 students at any one single time. So I would be painting and chatting with everybody that is in the class at the time. And people can see what I'm doing, and I'll go through various different techniques, and people can ask me to show different ways. And that will be once a week. Now, unfortunately, because of my work schedule, that will be different timings each time. But that all of those videos will go up onto the Patreon on that $32 Patreon buy-in setting for people that have signed up to it to see. What will also happen is that Myles and I will both be joining in with the pledge, and we will do a PDF guide to how we create our 2 various legions. So they will be available. Also, if you are part of this pledge for the 6-month period, you'll then get free entry into the gaming event that we're going to be doing, which will likely be held at Firestorm Games around about November, December sort of time. And from all the money that you pay into the pledge, that will then get you your ticket to take part in the gaming event at Firestorm, providing, of course, we're not in any lockdowns or anything like this. So that'd be great. And then the ultimate thing from this entire pledge, anybody that has been part of the pledge for the 6-month period will be entered into a prize draw to win Myles's battle group. So everything that Myles paints for this Patreon on a monthly basis, by the end of the 6th month, the person that wins the raffle will win that battle group that Myles has done and come away with 2 battle groups, one painted by Myles himself. I'd say that was quite a lot that anybody who takes part for this 6-month period can get from it, because you're getting 4 lessons, you're getting PDF tutorials. Of course, that does mean that you can see the other PDF tutorials that are already on the Patreon, because you're signing up to a rate high enough to be able to qualify for them. Then you get free entry into the gaming event. You build an army along with everybody else at the same time, and then you've got a chance of winning an absolutely amazing prize as well. And that starts on the 1st of May.
Yes, it does. So who doesn't have just a bunch of Titanica stuff lying around? This is what we've been chatting off screen. I have so much stuff that I need to paint, but no incentive to do so. So, Mathew, what was your idea for your... Because I don't really have a strong attachment to any of the Legios, so I was going to play it off you. You could be the leading man on this. What do you want to do? And I'll do a force in opposition. What Legio have you decided to do?
So, the Legio that I've gone with has actually been inspired by something you've already done, Myles. And that is that I'm going to be doing a full Ordo Sinister force. So my entire battle group will be Ordo Sinister. That doesn't mean everything I'm going to have is going to be Psi Titans, because rules-wise, you can only have one Psi Titan. But everything else will be painted as support Titans for the Psi Titan. And because of that, the thing that we came up with is that, Myles, you're going to do a contrasting force to that. So yours is going to be a traitor force. Mm-hmm. Where mine is psychically enhanced, you're going to be running with a completely different form of enhancement. What are you going
demon engines. I'm going to juice some demonic ichor. Yeah, I'm so Legio Vulpa. I think what I'm going to go for, because later on in the Heresy they really get juiced up. They really drink the Kool-Aid. And there's been a tantalizing hint in the latest Titanicus book about demon engines. So I hope I'm planning ahead for some really cool demonic engines coming out soon, and everything will fall into place. Yeah, so we've got demons versus nulls. Yeah.
I just seen a comment pop up just there. Would the colour scheme be all black? No, it wouldn't. It would be black and then the green marble that Myles has covered already. And then I will be putting in elements of glowing orange to it to be a contrast. There will only be one Psi Titan, of which I'll be changing up as well, because I've got this idea to do a...
No. That is... It's a freaking awesome idea. No. I want...
It's a really cool idea that people...
If this idea comes off, I want that visual punch of seeing if... Shut up. I want people to see it in person, because it's freaking amazing. Yeah. But I've been looking up all week, like 3D printable, like demonic stuff. you could get for Titans. There's some really unusual STL files out there. There's this whole new community of people coming up with all sorts of crazy ideas. So have we decided where we're going to base this yet? Will it be a Terra, Talon?
I think we ended up going with Terra, didn't we?
Terra,
However, that could well be changed when I read Mortis, although Mortis is based at Terra. But I fully imagine that when I get to read Mortis, I'm going to be finding out about some rather corrupted Titans in there anyway. So it'd be a really, really good example to get lots of different Titan legions that everybody can paint. You know, there's going to be nothing limited to them. They can paint whatever legios they want. I even missed out, Myles, that we're going to be creating a student gallery on the website as well.
Yeah, of course.
So for everything that people paint, we're going to be creating a gallery on the Lil'Legend website for the students' work to go onto. We're also going to be doing a monthly roundup as well on our monthly webinars, where everybody and everybody's work will be spoken about, and we will talk about the progress and how things are going with the Titanicus pledge at the time, which I think will be ace to get viewers' work students and patrons' work seen by the public, because for me it's an absolutely fantastic way of getting lots and lots of people coming together to create an amazing gaming and painting extravaganza covering teeny tiny Titans.
It's a nice community as well. We've got a really nice community on the Patreon, and we want to do more to showcase the work that's being produced there. I mean, from students who are taking the tutorials and doing their own thing with them, creatively reimagining them, with the students' work that we're developing together. Can't emphasize this enough. Even if you can't attend the event, if you participate in the challenge, if you complete the challenge, well, we'll enter you into the prize draw as well. So no matter where you are in the world, you can still win the Titan Legio. We are aiming for a November date, but because of COVID, again, that C word, insurance companies, venues, we're still working out exactly when we can book it in. So this challenge will run for 6 months. 6 months deadline for this, for any number of Titan Maniple that you want to create. And then date and venue TBD to be arranged. But yeah, that's the rough outline of it. And if you did want further feedback, if you want to join in more of a communal atmosphere, have a look at the post that I put yesterday on the Patreon under the newsletter. And it's a link to the Facebook page. Go on there, post as much as you like. Me and Mathew are on there all the time. And we should hopefully, as a community, give each other some feedback and get that ball rolling. It feels like this is the pebble that'll cause the avalanche.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I see it as a way of being a lot more interactive with people. Again, going back to I feed off of people's enthusiasm. I get excited by seeing other people's excitement about things. So I get thoroughly excited when I see all of the other people getting involved with everything that we're doing and what they're working at, and seeing how much people are enjoying what is going on, as opposed to just Lil'Legend just being seen as a painting tuition group. No, Lil'Legend is so big, it is a community within itself and part of a wider community. So I want us to be as involved and as interactive as we possibly can be, to be able to make the hobby world that much better. I mean, we're just coming out of a point where we haven't been able to do anything together for so long. This is a perfect opportunity for us to do something together in many different ways, where we're doing stuff in our own homes together, but then we're also doing stuff towards ultimately coming together as a community to be able to get involved and play games and have fun together as a group. It would just be brilliant.
I keep hearing
this could just be the starting of something that can happen a lot more in the future, because we can go along to events and we can do talks with people. We can do painting demonstrations with people. We can get involved in many different things. Like Titanicus is a 6-month thing. Who knows what's going to come after this? What we move on to. And that doesn't just have to be down to Miles and my ideas. That can be down to public and student ideas as well. What they want to see next.
Yeah.
We can get involved in something like that. And where Miles is giving up the prize this time, perhaps next time I'll do the prize. All these different options that we can go down and come up with something cool.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Ever. Well, Matthew, thank you so much for taking us through that. It's an absolute delight working through it. My apologies for not getting the damn thing to work. I had to take pictures last second, put them up. We'll organise it for next time. Right. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for that. We'll catch you soon. Okay, we're on the outro screen. I'm so sorry about that. Oh God, so sorry about that. Posted it up. Yeah, nobody can hear us. Yeah, posted it up. I did a trial during the week. Clicked the buttons, worked perfectly. Loaded it up again today. Clicked it, nothing. Kept clicking it, nothing, nothing. I'm sure it's something that I've done, but I can't think. I couldn't think what in the 10 minutes we had before we went live. So I took screenshots of everything and put them up. Yeah, it's just a technical error on my part, unfortunately, which should be an easy thing to solve for next time. It went well.